Okay, so I reviewed my acting, which was very good. Very good. My little happy, sad, surprised, angry, whatever. Then I went on some lessons, some acting lessons, and look at those tips. And then I looked at more other people's doing their own acting snippets and impressions and challenges. What I would say to that is y'all are doing a little too much. Not too much effort. You're putting in good effort. That's a good sign. But too much uh, importance on the things that don't mean much. So things that don't mean much. For example, I see this shit everywhere. You say one line and you are emphasizing different syllables of words and different words of the line. I hated going to there. 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 That is not the point of the scene. And that if you go to this I wouldn't do that. If I went to an audition, I would not think of saying I hated going there. I hated going there. I hated going there. And deciding which one of those to use. There has to be a message. Which brings me to my next point. Don't focus on just one goddamn line. Try and do a whole monologue. Or a whole dialogue. Or a whole scene. So you have some content of what the fuck is actually happening in the scene. You need to pretend that you're reading a book. And in the book, the book, you have words like speech, and then you also have what the it's a good boxing fight. What the character was thinking, what they were feeling, what happened, what they noticed, so in a book, you there's a purpose to it. So, for example, if you say I hated going there, why did you hate? What happened? You went to a new hair cutter. You went to a new hairdresser, but you're a woman. So if you're a man and you went to a new hair cutter, it doesn't fucking matter. But you were a woman and you went to a new hairdresser and they fucked up your hair. And you are saying this to your best friend. So you're saying this not to a colleague, not to a child or a parent or a sibling. You are saying this to your best friend, and you are a woman who went to a hairdresser, and the line is, I hated going there. So how would you act this out? It would be like, I hated going there. 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 That's how you would naturally say the line to your friend. But you are just exaggerating it, So you wouldn't say, I hated going there. You wouldn't say that to your friend. Would you really go up to your friend? And if you want to say, I hated going there to your hairdresser, and say, I hated going there. That would sound like you're saying it to a parent. But you're saying it to a friend. So you would say, I hated going there. I hated going there. Because that's the natural flow of speech. And once you bring out the purpose of the meaning, as if you were reading a book and could see all the emotions and could read what the characters were thinking and what they noticed in the scene and what they learnt and what their inner prejudgments were. Then there's only one way to say it. There's really there's only one way to say the line and the speech. And what makes or breaks the character then becomes the story. What kind of role are you playing? How deep is the story? How well thought out are and embraced are the themes and emotions? So once you learn how well are the emotions and themes, then there's really only one way to say it when you are thinking about the message. That's what I think about. So like when I get into character, when I do my little skits, when I try to act out different characters of movies, I think, narrow my eyes and really think, how would this character feel? How would they feel in this scenario? And then just bring out the entire message, the entire dialogue through their feelings. And then you don't got to worry about saying, I hated going there. 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 You don't got to worry about that because that's just fucking one line. But a character is played through an entire film and has many, many, many different lines throughout the film, and it needs to be one coherent message. And it depends on how good the story is. So if you have a shit story, you're not going to win an Oscar because you can't fake the character. The character has to be a real part of a story, as if you were reading a novel. And one more thing I'd like to say is, you don't gotta be hot to be a good actor. I noticed this. I thought maybe you do. But as I was watching, there are some people that are doing it wrong, that are on purpose being ugly. You can't be ugly on purpose. You need to bring out the best of yourself. But you're acting, so that's okay. So you don't gotta bring out anything. They will put you in costume, in makeup, and hair. So you do hair, makeup, and costume. And if you bring out the sincere emotions of the scene, no one looks at your looks. It's like when you hear a song, no one thinks of how the person looks like when they hear a song. It's also like that in movies. Now, if you play the role of a reject, you're going to come across as a reject. But if you have a decent role in a movie and you are not good looking, as long as you have decent hair, makeup, and costume, and get into character, and bring out the emotions, the looks don't matter. That's what I noticed when I was looking at these auditions. Because some of them were good looking, some of them were not good looking. But there were some who were not good looking, who had a much more memorable performance than those that were good looking. I just noticed that. So yeah. Leave a thumbs up.